Hi, Dad.
Hi there, Jamie.
You seem less mesmerized than you were yesterday.
Yeah, I thought, this is live. I would explode with enthusiasm.
Ah, I like it. Yeah, I could tell you were very much not frozen.
Yeah, and we had a very successful day. So let's hope
Indeed.
we have lots of good questions.
Cool, cool, cool. Yeah, it's lovely here. I feel like finally we've had some nice weather. It's been
Oh, good Lord. Yeah.
a rainy winter.
And I don't see any rain in the next 10 days, which will be cool.
Wow, it seems like there's already questions. I don't know
Yeah,
exactly how people got their questions in so quick, but
I
at
read
any
them.
rate, we'll give people a moment before we start actually answering questions. But if you want to say hi, we love to know where you're watching us from or what type of dog you have. It's always nice to have some semblance of an idea who's in the audience. It's not quite the same as being able to actually see everyone's lovely faces, but at
No.
least with a name, we can try.
Well, I love it because you can see whether they think, oh, that's a good idea, or what is he talking about, like shaking their head. And you
Mm,
know instantly this is not getting across. Let's just say it again in a different way.
yeah.
Um, oh, lovely.
Yeah, it's hard to read the reactions when there are none. But there you go. Hello from Pittsburgh. Hello from Indiana.
Well,
10-year-old toy Australian Shepherd. Sounds like a cutie. Evening gents from Ontario, Canada. Oh, 7 Australian Labradoodles.
oh,
Oh, Blue Vale Meadows. That's actually one of our affiliates. They
yeah.
regularly earn a few commissions here and there. Well done.
Well,
Uh,
that'll turn you into a trainer really quickly.
well done, Blue Vale. Vicky from Florida with a 5-year-old golden retriever and a 7-year-old Goldador. All black Goldador.
Yeah. Oh,
That's a golden Labrador,
yeah.
but an all black golden Labrador. That's kind of a paradox.
Golden Labrador. Well, yes.
All right, a 16-week-old Bernese golden puppy in Quebec, British
Oh,
Columbia, 6-year-old golden doodle. All right,
American
we got
Bulldog.
the Goldens and the Doodles are representing
Yeah.
Eastern Ontario. 4 Shelties, one almost 15 years. Oh, that's wonderful. 2 are coming up on 3 years, and a 15-month-old rescue just joined. Oh,
All right,
quite
we
a
better get on with it because the questions are disappearing before we can get to them. We're going to scroll to the top.
No, that's what our tech support person's for. They
Wow.
present us with the questions they've curated. So we are ready for our first question. Julie says, my standard schnauzer will bark once or twice at my large picture window and then runs laps in front of it. I've seen how to handle the barking, but can I minimize or eliminate the running of laps?
Yep. You've got the shush, no barking, now down. Boom. I like to talk the dogs through it. Usually when they're barking at a window, it's themselves they see. Maybe it's weird wind outside, and they take a look, and as they approach it, they see this dog getting bigger. So Billy does that all the time, but we're talking him out of it now. And I say, it's your reflection, silly. Now lie down. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Although it also seems like running around in laps doesn't sound so bad. Good way
Well,
to get a
put it on.
little energy out.
Yeah.
But it's nice to be able to stop it, certainly, if it's
Yes.
not
Running
never ending or getting out of control.
time. Say not with toddlers in the room or with adults drinking red wine and you got
Uh,
beige carpets.
Sometimes I instruct my children to run some laps because it becomes clear to me they have a little excess energy.
Yeah.
All right, next question. We're the 7th home our adopted German Shepherd has had in his 2.5 years. Matt Biesner talked about unknown trauma, about how long should we give Cooper to truly adjust and know he's not going anywhere.
Well, that will take a long time, but certainly, yeah, the unknown. It must be awful for dogs just leaving mum and the litter mates, and then you're sleeping on your own the first night. So, what I'd like to do is to get a new dog or puppy on a schedule within 3 days. And so that a lot of things are really quick and effortless, like teaching them to be on cue, teaching them to like to go in their crate and settle down. So we do a lot of crate training with the door open, in your crate, toss in a treat, in your crate, toss in a treat. Then we do it with stuffed chew toys, in your crate, shut the door, open the door, call the dog out again, put the chew toy back, lots of crate games. So the dog loves going in. Don't, like have the dog playing around with you all night, as a lot of people do first day of adoption. Then all of a sudden you're going to try and get it in a crate. So make sure it loves the crate in the day. And when it's in the crate, you walk away, then you walk up periodically and praise it. I stick my fingers through it and stroke the dog and offer treat. So I think a crate is very important for imbuing confidence and in dogs, and the schedule is really important. And so we've taught it to go to the crate on cue, to pee on cue, to settle down quickly, happily, willingly, in the crate with stuffed chew toys, which reduces barking. And regardless of whether the dog was a barker and it's old home, new rules. That's the way to teach it. So they learn in the first 3 days. Then I like lots of quiet moments with the dog lying down on the floor, and I'll squat down next to it and just talk to it, tell it stories, pet it really slowly up over the muzzle, over the dome of its head and down. They like being stroked over their eyes. Don't pat them. Once you got your hand on the dog, keep it there, scratch it behind the ears, especially on its chest. And if you can get it to roll over, which they often do, if you scratch from the chest and under the arm, when they're lying down, they'll lift their arm up at a rear leg. Now you've got the whole chest and belly. And as you're stroking that gently, you're just going to change the hormonal and neurotransmitter sort of environment of the brain. All those lovely hormones, well, only one's a hormone, oxytocin, but that's the lovely one because it's called the love hormone. But the neurotransmitters, lots of serotonin, lots of dopamine, the feel good sort of neurotransmitters, the antidepressants. And we start the relationship, and the time out of the crate I would spend doing that. I wouldn't do much active stuff until after 3 days and he's got the schedule down. But we'll never know what went on, but we can only imagine after having 7 homes. And then day 4, I would start lure reward training, yes, and see what we can do in one session. And if it doesn't work because the dog's blowing off the food or he's over the top, reactive and inattentive, I would wait and reward train to get automatic sits and long sit stays and lots of lovely eye-to-eye attention.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing I would add is it's an interesting how you phrase the question about how long should we give this dog to adjust and truly know, he's not going anywhere. Um, and I think the beauty of our approach to training and all these things that Ian was talking about is you can start them from the very beginning, and you should. And like you don't really need to wait on too much of it. It's kind of like you see where your dog is at and what he's comfortable with, and sure, you don't need to rush him. And those first 3 days, you want to keep it really mellow and easy stuff. Um, but like just having come sit treat is like that's basic lure reward training, and the more of that you do in the first few days, like that's going to be the quickest way to get that relationship and get that bond and get your dog feeling confident and at ease. And so when you're using reward based methods and you're using you know fun and games, you don't really need to wait for anything. You just get started right away.
Yeah. And when there's the lack of anything aversive, I think the dog will actually know within seconds, not even minutes, that it's just lucked out. And that is the basis of the relationship. And I would tell the dog that. Say, you're a very lucky dog. We won't throw you out of the house and we won't leave you. We're going to stick with you. And when you say those things, the emotion comes out, and that's what the dog is reading.
Yeah. All right. Next question. Jane says, "You have tips for socializing a 15-month-old dog lived in a condo up to now, not housebroken, appears to have never set foot outside the condo, breeds a Sheltie. Now, the me and my 3 Shelties, owner deceased.
Wow, never stepping out of the condo and not being housebroken. That sounds exceedingly yucky. So straight to house training, but with a 15-month-old dog, you'll have to do crate training games. I would feed it only for going into the crate. Gate open, as I said, toss treats in your crate, good dog, come here, sit. In your crate, bunch of treats, good dog, come here, sit. Because I don't want the dog then freaking out because it's in the crate and losing it and chewing at the crate and peeing and pooping and stuff. But
You'd also
let's
try
get it
tethering a
trained.
chew toy to the back of the crate, yeah?
Yeah. And well, that would be for longer if I'm going to shut the door. But then I wouldn't leave it in there for an hour yet. I would frequently go up, toss some tastier treats than the kibble in the chew toys, talk to it a lot. And once we got it down on an hourly schedule in the crate, we're off and running with household manners in terms of house training, chew toy training, and sort of quietness or barking training. And then, and at the same time, I train the resident shelters too, that no dog is trained sufficiently. You never give up. So getting a new dog, it's time to start. So I really like that on toilet breaks when you say, okay, dogs, let's go pee. And the pack goes out and you say, well done, Daisy. Good boy, Jess. There's a good dog, Brooke. And then they all sit in a circle around you and we have a little treat time after it's all done and you're back inside.
Yeah. And then, of course, the other part of the question was about socializing. And if the dog has not had a lot of socialization, hasn't been outside the condo, the big tip is, you're going to need to be patient and gentle. That this is going to be a lot to, never have been outside a building, and then start gradually making your way into the outside world. Probably start by bringing elements of the outside world into your home where you can have a little more control over it, and rather than going out into the world where things can get exciting and out of control.
Yeah, I would download the books, from Dunbar Academy and look at how I list for a new puppy or a new adult dog, what's urgent, what's important, and look at that list and rank order it yourself. Because for me, getting on with other dogs is very low on the totem pole here. I always say home and family first, meaning the dog isn't messing your home about because that is very frustrating. But the socialization urgency is with people, and you bring them to your house to start doing it. So it's all controlled, and a different person each day or 3 different people come round to hand feed the dog his kibble. All the food is hand fed as rewards in training or for classical conditioning. And gradually we form the dog's human social group. And then we think about, well, do you think the dog would enjoy being walked? In which case, he can now walk with people he knows in a group, and a couple of them may have dogs. So, and we don't even try to let them come nose to nose. We walk, but we're separated by, 3 or 4 yards. So the dogs get used to being walked together and receiving lots of kibble on the walks in the presence of a couple of other dogs. And we're starting to form now the dog's doggy social group. I think we're very unrealistic about socialization with dogs. So many people, what would be perfect with every dog. And even when we do the puppy route and we do heavy duty puppy socialization, starting in puppy class, and then the dog will still have dogs he meets that he doesn't like. They're no different from people. Like the notion that we should get along and be happy about sharing our home or our walks with every person there is. I mean, I can think of some people that would ruin my walk, just if they open their mouth. And dogs have special friends and special enemies. And what you want to try and create is a group of special friends. And then they walk together, and that gives them enormous confidence.
All right. Susan says, "Hi, do you have any training tips for people with small dogs, such as Cotton?"
Yeah, everything we've said. Size doesn't discriminate apart from in the owner's head. Generally, owners of big dogs, their secret fear is that their dog may hurt another dog. I don't mean necessarily, biting it, just splatting it with its big paw or knocking it over or treading on it. And owners of little dogs are scared that that may be hurt by big dogs. So in puppy class, we let them all off leash. And I tell people, I'll watch them. If you're concerned about anything, tell me. I'll say, everyone grab your dogs. But I point out how the little dogs are training the big dogs to slow down and chill, and the big dogs are training the little dogs. If you sit, I will go still. And they work it out so quickly. And I've had some sort of pretty wingback, sparky, week ones, and halfway through the class, they're all fine. What mixes things up is when people try and say reinforce the underdog or what they think is the underdog or enforce the top dog. I mean, again, I think, why are you reinforcing the top dogs if the underdog doesn't have problems already? And why are you reinforcing the underdog to make the distinction between the two even more difficult for them both to realize? Just let them do it. They will have a natural rank, and that's all it means. It doesn't mean one dog will bully another. It's just that there's one bone and two dogs. It's pre-decided who it belongs to. That's what rank means. Therefore, there are no fights when you throw a bone out, as we did, to 24 dogs living in a pack. Most of the dogs would stand still and watch it go, woo, boom. And then Ken would get up and slowly wander over and take it. He was the undisputed top dog, one of the best rulers I've ever seen. He didn't growl, he didn't threaten, he didn't need to. He was just top dog. On the other hand, you'll get opportunist dogs that run and get the bone, and they'll go chew, 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 chew. And then as soon as Ken comes up, just keeping it warm for you, Ken, getting it moist, and walk away. So the whole point of rank is to prevent disputes in a pack of puppies, adolescent dogs, and adult dogs. They want it so they all understand their position. So no, wise, jerky little opportunist puppy, say, parks in the CEO's parking spot, or in doggy terms, lies down in a sunny spot or a shady spot, or plays with the latest leaf that fell off the tree, whatever it is. It's all pre-decided. And if dogs grow up in development, I'm going to give this lecture again. My rank, I really miss doing it. The development of social hierarchies. You see, when puppies come in the world, it's nolo contendere. How can a puppy compete even with a puppy in a litter that's 4 weeks older? They're outsized, they aren't quick enough, they don't have the confidence. And so they grow up in this nolo contendere when they don't contest older dogs, i.e., bigger dogs or dogs with more experience. I mean, it's beautiful to watch. You will occasionally see an adult dog, and Claude was one of the best I ever saw. He trained some of the craziest pit bulls I've ever seen, and what he did was indiscernible until I videoed it. He didn't do anything. What he did was say he was sniffing. He just would stop sniffing, and his head would be hanging down there. And this crazy little pip we had, that we fostered over Christmas to New Year's, would just go "Whoop," and sit and then lie down. I thought, I've never seen anything like this. Old Claude, who wasn't the smartest bulb in the string, and he's training this little pit bull puppy that I couldn't do. I couldn't get him to slow down and sit and lie down. And Claude did it in about 5 minutes.
Yeah. So I have a couple of little tips for training small dogs, because while training any dog is, dog training is dog training to a certain extent, there are some things about little dogs that make them a little different. The biggest thing, of course, is their size, and that's especially important when you're luring.
Oh,
When you're luring a little dog, the motion, to get a little dog to sit, if it's a tiny dog, it can be a tiny motion. And if you go too high, then you're going to be luring the dog to jump up. So paying attention to the kind of the minute motions that you need when you're trying to lure, sit down, and stand. And those really are the building blocks of dog training.
of
That's
all.
one thing. Yeah. And the other thing is you might need to get down low. Like if you have trouble bending over or it's hard to get down on the ground, it can be harder to lure a little dog. It's certainly easier if your knees are still good and your back's still good. If not, you might want to sit on the ground, something like that. And the final thing I would say is a lot of times people with little dogs let their little dogs act like little jerks because they're small. And so people aren't scared of them. And so people let the dogs jump up or, mouth people or bark and yap. And I would say, don't do that. Like just because you have a little dog doesn't mean you shouldn't hold that dog to reasonable standards of what it's like to be polite and, not torment other people. So, train your little dog and let them be a model citizen for their breed. And yeah, watch those micro movements when it comes to luring.
Yeah, and I'd say one thing that makes the luring easier, that I personally would not get on the ground with a little dog because he's going to jump all over me. I'd leave that to the kids. I would raise the dog up and even ask a groomer, can I borrow a grooming table, which has a plastic, like rubber non-slip top. It has a little leash that holds him up here so he can't get near the edge or drop off. Because one of the hardest things with little dogs is getting them to go down, especially if they have little legs. You do this and they just put their head to the ground. But on a grooming table, you can move the food lure below the tabletop. So then they come up and think, and what they have to do is put their butt down as a counterweight to stop them and then hang their paws over. Because, and I would practice that to make sure you can do that test sequence. And when you can with a little dog, you'll blow everyone else in class away. I mean, they can work at 3 times the pace, sit down, stand down, roll, high five, sit down, than say a Rotti or a Newfie or a Bernese. I see we got a Bernese listener here too.
And if you can't easily get your hands on a groomer's table, there's a company called Blue Nine. They make a training platform called the Climb Training Platform. We were actually using it today with Billy. They're really good for distance commands, but those also work really well for small dogs. They're not so high that your dog's going to get injured falling off of it, but that extra, I don't know, 12, 14 inches of height makes a huge difference when you're trying to
Yeah,
kind of
and they're
train
really
your
good for
dog.
stays, which all little dogs need.
Yeah.
But
But it's true. You definitely need the rubberized layer on top because if you don't, they'll be slipping and sliding all over the place. But it comes with one. You just got to remember to put it on. All right, next question. Rob says, "Hi guys from New Brunswick. I have a 15-month-old Walker Coonhound. How do I get her to stop jumping on us?"
We've been through this the last 3 days. The solution's simple. Say, Coonhound, sit. End of problem in theory. Does it work in practice? No, because their brain's on a different planet. So you must troubleshoot it. You got to think, when do they jump up? First thing in the morning, when you come through the front door, when visitors arrive, and you have to troubleshoot those sessions, those scenarios, and do a setup by inviting a bunch of people around. Or whenever you come home, you greet the dog as best you can. You count how many times you have to say down before sit, before it stops jumping. And then when it is, you give it a treat, go out the back door, come home again. And you only have to repeat that 4 or 5 times until the dog is close to perfection with you. Well, then you're going to do the same with 10 people on Saturday morning. You're having a brunch and you have someone serving the brunch, you're going to be training the dog. Now, the other way that this is different is it's not an unexpected visitor, where now, especially if you're living in New Brunswick in the winter, you got to get them inside quickly before they freeze to death. Here, there's no urgency to get these people inside, and the people are pre-trained. They know to come in, shut the door behind them, and stand perfectly still with their arms crossed way up here. And your job is to get the dog to sit on a mat 3 yards back from the door, or lie down if you like. And when you're happy, you praise your dog and you say hello. That is a signal for the person to say, puppy come, puppy sit. that clockwork, muscle memory, brain memory, first response that you've trained in from multiple come sits that Jamie mentioned. Come sit, come sit, come sit, treat, come sit, treat, come sit, come sit, come sit. Over and over, one step, come sits. And when the dog's sitting, they put the food on the dog's nose before they bend over a little to hook their thumb through the top of the collar. So the dog now can't jump up and smack them in the teeth or under the chin. Then they hold the food and praise the dog. They don't give it yet. Good dog, you're a very good dog. And then they give one bit of food, maybe another, then another. Then they slowly let go. We see what the dog does. If he jumps up, sit. Again, this is where both of you say sit now. And what I found is group verbal instructions really impress dogs. When the visitor and its owner both say, hey, Walker Hound, sit. Just in that tone of voice. No, shouting is not necessary. They're like, oh, okay. And then they go out the back door, come in the front again. Again, it takes about, this time, 5 or 6 re-entries with someone who is not an owner. But you got, I keep saying this over and over again. You see, when usually the activity behaviors happen in real life, it's always so difficult because it's always unexpected and it's the first time. And always the first time will be the worst time in terms of explosiveness. So to solve it, the solution is so simple. Teach it to sit everywhere and anywhere, every 25 yards on a walk, every 30 seconds when it's playing. And that will have a pretty good start to generalize that sit always means sit, no matter where it is and whatever's going on. And then we have to troubleshoot it. Otherwise, I know people, they're at the front door, let's say it takes them 2 minutes to calm the dog down. And they do that with every visitor. And they've got 3 kids who are having 5 visitors in an evening, That takes a lot of time. Why not just deal with it once and for all? And I like, people to schedule these dog training parties. Today we're doing a jumping up party and it's free pizza and beer for anyone who'd like to come along, or party favors for the children that come.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is one of so many, it's one of many problems that people inadvertently reinforce the behavior they're trying to get rid of. It's so much like so many problems about people training. You've got to make sure that the people who greet your dog know to not reinforce your dog when it jumps up, because it's human nature. Dogs jump up on people and they reach down and pet it and say, oh, hello, what a good doggy. And every time that happens, the dog's learning, oh, well, I like attention and I like greeting people. I jump up on people. It works great. So
and even more importantly, they reach down and push it. Dogs love being pushed. So do cows. Right. Try pushing a cow to get it to move away from you.
So the key part really is training the people that interact with your dog so they understand, do not interact with the dog unless the dog has 4 feet on the ground. And then, sure, praise it, pet it, treat it, talk to it, look at it. But if the dog's jumping up, they should be ignoring it. So you can be luring it into a sit or, getting its attention and trying to get it back into a sit. But yeah, it's so many problems in dog training. People accidentally train the opposite of what they're hoping for.
Nearly all the time. And the reason why I say cross your arms in front of your chest is because most adult humans, especially men, don't understand the instruction, don't wave your hand about or don't touch. They don't understand that. They understand this. For children, I say, be a tree, wrap your branches. And
everyone benefits from having clear instructions of what to do.
Yeah.
It's so much better to tell someone what you want them to do instead of saying what they should not do.
Yeah.
All right. Next question. Deb says, I have a 2-year-old named Feist. She is an escape artist and will approach neighbors and stand and bark ferociously at each person.
Well, the problem here is you've got an escape artist. We stop that right away. It's not a joke. And if the dog can move from the safety of your house or the safety of a fenced yard to be out in public, it's just a matter of time when usually it will be hit by a car or someone will say, your dog attacked me. That's all they have to say. It's now a legal problem. I can't help you out. I'd just say get a good lawyer. And I'd tell you, in some countries, if your dog were of a certain named breed, actually breeds, there's lots of them now, he's gone. He's got a death sentence on him. And you're going to spend a lot of money to let the. So please take it seriously that he's an escape artist, and fence up those holes, with hog wire. I mean, I wouldn't go for chicken wire here, but if wire fencing can keep in hogs, I'm sure it can keep in dog of any breed. And the other stuff, the barking at people, well, we've talked about that. Many times over on the last 3 days. So I think they're all taped. I would re-watch those, and we start with the basics. Teach your dog to shush on cue. I mean, without that, you can't go anywhere. I mean, sometimes I sort of shake my head when I try and see some reward trainers even trying to solve barking, yet they haven't taught it to speak and shush on cue. Then what point precisely are you going to click and give one food reward, the same old food reward we've been giving? You can only give the feedback, you can only give the instruction with your voice, and you can only give the feedback with your voice to make sense, because the feedback has to be analog. Like Jamie and I were talking today about how you read a dog when he's suddenly going to go overboard and like break a stay or what have you. And we got to stop that. And we do with our voice. And we say, sit, good dog. That's right. It was going to break the stay, or it's just going to jump up. We were pushing it too long in a stay, say, or we were getting too active and too silly. So the only way we can give the simple instruction is verbally. So let's make the number one item on our training agendas teaching ESL. It's disappeared from dog training. It's why we're having so many problems now. And if you can't stop barking, you will G up the other dog and owner so quickly. And now they're stressed, which your dog picks up, which stresses your dog more. Or maybe the other owner will start threatening you and the other dog will start threatening your dog. A simple shush command makes it very easy for dogs now to take a walk without, everyone treating it like a leper.
Yeah. I mean, I think this also reminds me of my guess would be the dog is escaping from the garden, from the yard.
Yeah.
Usually, if you have a dog inside and you've got the doors closed, most dogs are unable to escape from houses. But it goes back to this issue that I think a lot of people think that their dogs can be unsupervised in the yard, and clearly yours cannot. When it's in the yard, it should be supervised, and that way you can kind of redirect and interrupt when he starts digging under the fence or wiggling through a hole, because you certainly can't let your dog escape when you're not paying attention. And if that means that they shouldn't be spending unsupervised time in the yard, then it's kind of back to the puppy training. You got to limit where they have access to. You have to confine them to a space that they can be trusted in when they're not being watched. And over time, you can hopefully build their ability to be responsible with more freedom. But if they have demonstrated that they cannot be responsible with that freedom, you've got to rein it back a little. You're the grown-up here, and you got to be the responsible one. So
it's like Billy's been with me for, I don't know, 2 weeks now, or 10 days, and she hasn't been
felt
out.
like a lifetime, hasn't it, Dad?
Well, the first 4 days were very hard, but once Billy got my schedule, she loves it. We are like peas in a pod now, and I don't have to tell her, right, we're going upstairs now I'm going to read on the couch and you're going to chew on the floor. But the thing is, it's not just because I'm a gardener. I want to make sure if she sticks her nose in a hedge, there's a fence all round. I want to check there that someone hasn't been making a muzzle hole in that fence. And most importantly, the thing that I really care about so much is that my dog doesn't annoy the neighbors by barking at people or other dogs that walk by the bottom of my garden, which is a public park. And, I really don't like, well, let's put it this way. I love teaching dogs to play quietly, and I love teaching dogs to enjoy my yard quietly and mannerly. And yeah, it's usually, about 2 or 3 years before I would trust a dog unattended in the yard. And the other thing is, I don't want to see a dog in the yard and think that's a nice dog, and then it disappears, and I don't know where it's gone or who's taken it. I'd be mortified if that happened. So I like enjoying my yard with my dog.
All right, next question. Lynn says, 6-year-old English Springer. How do we get him to stop barking and jumping at animals on the television? Oh,
Oh,
this is a throwback to day one of our Q&A, where someone had the exact same problem. And it's like most of the other, issues with reactivity, but you have an advantage because the beauty of the television as a trigger is that you can control it. You can control it with a remote control. So you are able to calibrate the level of intensity much greater and much more easily than if this was reactivity towards bicyclists or monster trucks or whatever. So you can turn down the volume, you can turn off the TV, you can pick what is on the TV. If the thing that's most likely to get your dog to react is other dogs on the TV barking, well, you could put a video of a little bird on the TV with no noise,
oh,
and start
I could
start
give
at a low level.
a breakdown, like, why is that sparrow barking? I'm scared to go out now.
But so the beauty is you can use your dog's desire to bark and jump up in response to the TV to actually put these behaviors on cue. And once you've got them on cue, then you can teach your dog to shush on cue, settle down on cue. And that is a skill that can be applied to all sorts of parts of your dog's life, which is really useful.
And as we teach ESL, there are other single word instructions we could give that could help, like bed, couch, down, in addition to shush. But yeah, I love the idea. The other night I couldn't work out, was the dog spooking at the window or the TV? And I was turning the TV on and off, and then I found the dog was barking at a picture of Dune and Hugo on the wall.
Mm.
But yeah, the solution, again, simple: teach shush, and then plus bed down. And I often give these single word instructions in a sentence. And when I think about it, living with dogs, my most common sentence instruction I give to dogs is: Rover, shush, find your Kong, go to your bed and settle down. Thank you. And I say it like that. And the words I emphasize are the ones that I've taught the dog what they mean, and proofed it in similar distracting settings and every possible scenario by teaching it to sit, watch, shush on walks every 25 yards. I mean, every session is in a different scenario. Quiet, leafy streets, busy urban ones, near a children's schoolyard or basketball pickup game and what have you, and do the same when they're playing. Every sit that you give is different, depending on which dogs are around them. Is the dog underneath or on top, or what have you? Basic training. It starts with the baby steps of lure reward training, teaching ESL, and then we proof it and mega motivate it. And do remember, in terms of mega motivation, we have to obviously use much more powerful reinforcement schedules than the one that are written in books, but also much more powerful rewards. So what's the best reward for a dog that's barking? I would say a good barkathon on cue. And the best places for that, I find, are when driving on the freeway. I'll occasionally say to my dog, come on, speak, speak, speak. And they woo, 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 woo. And I join in, which they seem to enjoy. So always be thinking, what better rewards can I use? And it's usually the problem itself. Once you've cued a problem, once you've put it on cue, you can now use it as a very effective reward, whether it's jumping up, barking, running away, chasing, or what have you. We can always find a situation that where any of those problem behaviors is acceptable and appropriate even.
All right. Deanna says, I have 2 bonded pit bull rescues. One is reactive to other animals. When I try to remove her from a situation, she redirects her reactivity to her bonded sister. What can I do?
What do we mean by bonded? They're they're good buddies or legally bonded?
My guess would be that they're good buddies, but we'll see if
Okay.
Deanna
Um,
pops in. But assuming bonded wasn't even part of the question.
Again, we can either wait until people answer on the screen, or I'll just tell you. I would say sit, end of problem. The question is, have you taught your dog to sit on cue? Have you taught your dog to shush on cue? Oh, they were rescued together. Thank you. Um, and then you have to troubleshoot it to always work. And I find the most useful time to practice sits is during a play session. Maybe the two of them together when they play to each other. But you've got to know that the sit works no matter what is going on. And this is where I would say, 99% of the dog owning population in the world waste their visit to the dog park. To me, what better place to train a dog to levels of reliability higher than anywhere? And so now when you're at home and it's just another animal or another dog, it's nothing compared to the mayhem that was going on in the dog park. So always your goal is to teach your dog to sit, lie down, to come, to shush, to get his chew toy, and so on. The question is, how do you teach this? First, you've got to lure, reward, train it. It's the quickest way to do it, bar none. So don't get hung up on much slower and more complicated reward training techniques. So teach it to sit and shush on cue, proof it so it always does it. And that means you have to troubleshoot. You must have control over the stimulus. And that's where fences are good. You see, I'll give the example of the dog park, or it could be cows in a field. You can start 100 yards away. Easy peasy. Then you work closer and closer. But don't forget my advice of 3 days ago. Once you're getting close, then back up a long way and do the approach again. Because the closer you get, the more on edge you are for it all breaking down in front of your eyes. So you want to get closer and closer, and the dog's really reliable. Then you come back here and do it. Well, easy, simple, simple. See, a little harder, a little harder. I can still manage it. Oh, I've done that before. Oh, I got a new record. Wow, I've never been as close. Now back up again. And when the dog is doing it because you backed up, you can praise them, which just normalizes the relationship. Because any reactivity, any dog reactivity, no matter which animal it's directed towards, humans included, owners get very frustrated and then upset, sometimes frightened. And that just blows everything out of the dog's brain now. So you have to keep calm when this is going on. I find things that help me when, like, I'm really scared around dogs, and I have been really scared working with some dogs, with dogs that bite people, and especially in Akita, I remember in the past. And I recite nonsense poetry because when I do it, I'm very lyrical. And like, the owl and the pussycat went to sea in a beautiful pea green boat. They took some money and plenty of kibble wrapped up in my great big treat bag. So I just recite the poetry or hum. I wouldn't sing. I wouldn't, force that on people who are watching. But you've got to do something that's rhythmic to keep you calm. Okay. Because once the dog knows that you've freaked out, the dog will freak out too.
Yeah, what do you think about how, I think one thing about the situation that seems extra challenging is if you are trying to handle 2 dogs who are reacting with one another, it feels like it might be helpful if you have a second person in the household or a second person you can
Oh yeah.
handle so that, it's hard to train 2 dogs at one time. especially if they are out of control and reactive. Um, Especially because a huge tool that's really useful is being able to pull your dog's attention away from the other dog. But if you're handling both dogs at the same time, you can't really do that physically. So if there's any way that you can have a second handler, one handler per dog is definitely easier than two dogs, one handler. All right, next question.
Oh, we're zooming along. Good Lord.
Is using a head halter bad for a dog? I have a 2-year-old high prey driven dog. When I use a head halter, he will not chase anything. If I use a muzzle, he is a statue.
Well, it depends whether you want to, control the problem, manage the problem for life, or whether you want to resolve it. I personally like to do as much training as I can in terms of social behaviors with the dogs off leash. So I can tell at any moment, are both dogs cool with this? Or is one dog running and hiding? Regardless, though, of whether you opt to use some training tools, collars, halters, harnesses, and what have you, leashes, or not, I would still resolve the problem. And so you then have a solid statue that could stand for years, or a dog that's more than totally okay. So I would follow all the instructions we've given to classically condition the dog in more and more, scary situations vis-a-vis other animals. And I would follow the advice of trying to create a core social doggy group for this dog, because, he's having a pretty miserable life if he has to be a statue whenever he sees another dog. I mean, come on. What's the biggest joy? Let's list the biggest joys in a dog's life. Now, we won't mention sex. I would say
You judged
sniffing
it.
any other dog's butt. No question about it. Next up would be sniffing other parts of their body, like the nether regions, the low slung nether regions, or the ears, or the muzzle. And another popular one, the paws. And think about it, you see, the paws tell the other dog where this dog's been. And the ears, when the dog scratches, they like putting paw scent behind their ears of maybe cat doo-doo or, sandy beaches or whatever it is. And so, I'm sorry. My brain just died on me. I'm so tired today. We've done so many questions, and I've been doing like fart leg, sprints with every question and no relaxing. What was I saying, Jamie?
Let's put that question back up on the board.
Yeah.
I kind of lost
Oh,
the
yeah.
train of thought.
And so we should try and make the problem better. So resolving it in that sense.
Oh, right. Halter
Because
harnesses.
otherwise,
Yeah.
the dog isn't getting the joy of the walk. It can only get its joy out of sniffing urine deposits and other stuff like that. Whereas they really like sniffing, fresh urine. I once did a study on that. Do they prefer immediately voided urine, day-old urine, or 3-day-old urine? Now, they love them all, but the fresh urine is where it's at, man, probably like us and buying meat from the butcher.
Mm-hmm. So can you, yeah, all right. Peggy says, I have a 4-year-old Morky. He screams and lunges on leash when a stranger approaches when we are out. Stranger does not have to be that close or focused on him at all. All right. Well, we've got some reactivity towards people and unfamiliar people in particular, but my guess is you can get a friend or family member to stand in, because as always, when we're dealing with reactivity, the key to solving it is a setup. Setting up a scenario where you can teach your dog to feel a little calmer and to behave appropriately in a scenario where you control whatever is causing the reactivity. So where you can keep the person very far away, make sure the person doesn't look at your dog, so that you can get your dog to come to you and sit and watch you. And you can talk to your dog and talk them through it and make them feel comfortable. If your dog is tug motivated, you could use a tug toy to help get their attention, their focus on you. And then the beauty of a setup is now this person, you can have them stay still while you get your dog's attention, but then you can have them walk by again or come little bit closer or move a little bit farther away. They will listen to you so that you can calibrate the level of intensity to a level where your dog's aware of it, but they're not totally out of control. Or they do lose control, but you just keep the situation static. And so after a little while, your dog realizes nothing's changing. This person isn't going anywhere. They're not doing anything. They're just standing there. Eventually, your dog is going to get bored and you will be able to get their attention back. And you'll be able to get them to sit and look at you and you can praise them. And your dog will realize, oh, okay, well, this person's no big deal. You do that with one person, you do it enough to where this one person can really walk right by. And then you do the same thing with another person. And you do it a few times with a few different people. Your dog will get the picture.
I am now, this is an out of control summit. The dog's out of control. When I think of that, I think of, a perfectly friendly dog. That's totally overly friendly. And so he's wing-batty, out of control. What we're getting is, no, this is not a training problem in the sense of non-compliance. It's a temperament problem. These dogs are reactive because they are fearful of people and other dogs. So I'm going to have to say something now. Dogs grow up in our people world. I think we should teach them when they're very young to love all people. And I mean a couple of hundred of them in the first few weeks at home. All dogs. Yeah, we're going to have a doggy vacuum between 8 weeks when it leaves the kennel to 12 weeks when it can pretty safely start off-leash puppy classes. Now, we have had, certainly COVID kind of put a nail in the coffin in terms of unsocialized dogs, but it was already happening. As I said, the pinnacle of dog training, of friendly off-leash dogs with confidence and well-trained, was the very late 90s and the early aughts. Since then, there's been a generalized increase in dog-dog reactivity towards other dogs and people. I find this absolutely criminal that the dog professions, and here I would include many professions where I belong, the dog breeders, that's not me, veterinarians, pet store personnel, dog trainers, humane workers. So I've worked in most of those professions apart from breeding, but I've lectured them lots. I lecture about one topic and one topic only, that the single biggest variable that will influence the dog's adult behavior, especially in terms of its interactions with other dogs and people, is whether or not it was socialized with many unfamiliar people prior to 8 weeks of age, and many dogs, unfamiliar dogs, prior to 8 weeks of age, and then immediately after 12 weeks of age. And this is not happening. And it is beginning to bug me because I've been doing this now for approaching 50 years. So I am actually going to write down in print online what I think of dog professionals that do not promote early socialization. Who's going to tell the owners? It ain't their fault. They get a dog and before they know it, oh dear, it's 14 weeks old. They've missed the boat. It would have been so easy then, and it would have avoided us having to hold this whole summit. And so we at Dunbar Academy have given new oxygen to our 20-year-old free pup book program. Now it's free pup and dog book program. And so please tell everyone, if they go to Dunbar Academy, or they can go to this very simple bit.ly link, which is dunbar.info/free pup books. If you live in a non-US country, you may have to put https:// in front of it for it to work. And then share these books with everyone you know, telling them, share these books with everyone you know. So we can get these free books, or the notion they're available, to spread around the world before the year is up. Because when the year is up, I really can't do any more of this. Because I'm very tired. That 7 years of spending 9 months in hotels, lecturing all over the world, I think added 10 years to my life. So the books are there. Please help us. Please help us. Tell everyone you know and every dog professional. Tell your vet to share it with their clients. Post the books on your own websites for free download. Okay. Just please share the books, because it really breaks my heart every fearful dog I see. And that includes every biting dog, every reactive dog, every dog reactive dog. It's fear based, and it's just horrible to look at. And I feel like my time on this planet has been a total failure, because reactive dogs are now increasing in frequency. I shake my head and think, what happened? We had everything in the 90s. We did it. You know, I shouldn't have let up. But I did. I took my eye off the ball. And now we're back to before where I started, back in 1981. It's crazy. We've got to, this is the year where we absolutely redefine companion dog training and make it a science, a real science based on numbers, which we as trainers count. So we can offer anyone, another trainer or consumer, proof that their training works and proof of how quickly it is. So now we can compare the skills of different trainers. Dog training must be skills assessed. So as
Yeah,
I
I
said,
mean,
I've
going back
written,
to the sorry,
sorry,
I was gonna say I was gonna say, going back to the socialization point that you were making about the puppy socialization, I think that I think that society and the world has kind of moved in this direction that's making it so that I think it used to be that people didn't think much about socializing their puppy, but they lived lives and brought their dogs to more places where socialization happened naturally, and that dogs and puppies were exposed to things more constantly, and that people are living more solitary lives. The pandemic certainly didn't help. People are living more online lives where people are getting a lot of their socialization on a computer or through their phone, and that does nothing for their puppy or their dog's desensitization and socialization. So, you know, I think that we need to really make this special effort countering these larger societal trends that are making it harder for puppies to get the socialization they need, to have the confidence to enjoy their lives. And I think it's going to require a special effort, but I think it's incredibly worthwhile. And I think it's a big part of what makes dog ownership, having a companion dog, such a valuable thing for people, is that, yes, it's nice to be able to FaceTime with your friend across the country or across the world. But there's really something still special about meeting in person, in physical space, being able to touch another person, being able to share a similar experience, and existing in the world that our dogs exist in, which is the world of reality, of meat space, if you will. And I think our dogs are a great excuse to remind us to not give up on the real world and to go to the real park and talk to real people. And like, one of the cool things about having a dog is talking to strangers. Like, so many people these days don't talk to any strangers. They think it's weird. When you're walking with a dog, it's not weird to talk with someone. Someone will say, "Oh, you got a pretty dog," or "Oh, I love that breed." And these kind of like, spur of the moment conversations, I think, are an essential part to all of us being happy and towards our society being healthy. So, I think we owe it to the dogs, we owe it to the puppies, we also owe it to ourselves. And you know, I'm hoping that yes, in this year with our free pup book program and at this focus on socialization, we can prevent this kind of reactivity in the future, because it really is on the rise, and it really is a tragedy for all these dogs that are, dealing with anxiety and fearfulness just for, regular walking down the street stuff that should be completely normal, that shouldn't be phasing them. So,
I think it's also a tragedy for I really feel for dog owners when they have a fearful or reactive dog, um, because I know they don't get the intense joy that when I used to walk Zuzu, and knowing she was confident of everything, she wouldn't harm a fly. You know, she was trustworthy around children, crotchety old men, other dogs, other animals and stuff. And the joy of walking with her and her reading me. I wasn't giving instructions. It was so wonderful. And the last few days I've had moments of that with Billy. It's a wonderful thing to do. And again, whether you like greeting other people or not, I actually like being lost in my own thoughts with the dog because I mull over a lot of stuff and I tell the dog about it until it's ready to say, tell it to Jamie or the rest of the world. So that to me is the biggest sadness for dog owners, and that's why we do it. That it can bring so much joy, but sadly, it often brings so much sadness and frustration. And that's what quantifying training is all about. I totally get owners. Jamie knows I have no patience, like with my computer. I just want it fixed now. I don't want to learn how it works, or you can do that online, Ian. I don't want to. I want my computer fixed. And in the same way, I understand owners say, I want my dog trained now. I get that. And so it's why I've developed all these training techniques that, like I talk about in the book, where you can be totally inconsistent and train your dog. I love it. How many trainers do you know? So you got to be consistent and it's got to take a lot of time. No, it's got to be quick, blindingly easy, and amazingly effective. And the effectiveness is something when Lure Reward training, that testing effectiveness is concomitant with teaching. We're testing the dog all the way along. What's he learning? How well is he learning? So I think it's a revolution time in dogs. I look on this as a pivotal moment. And being the born optimist, I think things will be a lot better next year. So,
All right. Well, this has been really wonderful. We've really enjoyed doing these Q&As, and we'll have to schedule some more Q&As in the future. But this concludes day 4. I should mention, of course, the Out of Control Dog Summit is sponsored by Doggy Dan.
So yay, Doggy Dan. You're all right, mate. That's good.
And the Healing Vet.
Hey, way to go, Healing Vet. Heal away. Heal, sit, heal, sit.
And of course, the Dunbar Academy, which is us. And we have lots and lots of resources on Dunbar Academy.
Sorry.
Lots of resources for resolving reactivity problems and out of control problems and temperament problems, including lots of free courses. And we have the free pup book program, which we really hope that you'll help us spread the word about, because
free everything. It would be free at Ian's house. You're selling my house on Dunbar Academy. Anyway, thank you, Leslie. Thank you, Carol. Thank you, Airedale01. Thank you, Lynn. Thank you, Buddy's Dream. And Airedale1 is there again. It really was a lot of fun. I enjoyed this a lot. It's a nice sort of end of the afternoon and beginning of the evening for me. Now I'm going to finish my water and zoom back to my computer.
I should also mention, I think you probably all are watching this on YouTube, it looks like. We, of course, have a YouTube channel, so make sure you follow us, subscribe to Dunbar Academy on YouTube. We're putting out new videos on the regular, so we'd hope to see you there. We love seeing comments posted, and we respond pretty regularly. So, all right, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Dad.
Guys.
And we'll see you next time.
Thank you, Jindy, for being in the back of the studio and keeping us honest.